The goal is not to succeed. Fail again, fail harder.
What have you built and what inspired you to build it?
I have built the Jane Club, which is a work and community space that focuses on mothers, and we offer childcare and an entire village of support for mothers. And the reason why I built it is because I desperately needed it. Truly, I had just had my second baby and was breastfeeding and working and writing a book and had converted a room in my house to an office because I wasn't ready to leave my very small children. Mm-hmm. And I found myself constantly pretending I didn't have kids, not telling people I worked with, hiding them, not wanting to say like, oh, I have to go home.
Right.
Feeling like it was some sort of a detriment to my work ethic. When actually, of course, what I've really found is that motherhood has inspired me in so many ways and has made my work across the board, I think, so much better. I believe I have so much more to offer the world because of motherhood, but I definitely felt I was either apologizing for, getting paid outside the home or apologizing for having kids. And I really wanted to create a space where both things were possible.
What we love, my team and I love so much about the Jane Club is it does two things. One is it's the idea that you have this emotional support system in other women who are kind of in the throes of the same life stage with you. And I think the second, which is so brilliant, is you're kind of lifting and alleviating all of those other things that are traditional responsibilities that unduly fall on the shoulders of a mother, right? So everything from meal preparation to laundry, basic kind of maintenance items. Can you talk a little bit about what you've seen in the stories of the women that you serve? And what impact that's making in their lives?
We're seeing so many women who are first-time moms who are entering. We start our child care at 3 months, so we have babies as small as 3 months. And so for so many of these women, they are starting this process for the first time, and they're coming to us, and they're crying because they feel like it's possible.
Right.
And they're being taken care of. And, one of our core beliefs and values is taking care of women first. And it's the same idea as the oxygen mask. Like, if you don't put it on, you're no good for anyone else.
Right.
And so when they come into our space, they cry. There's a lot of crying. And I understand why. Yeah. Because there's so much output. And some of the amenities we offer, I wish there was a better word because it sounds luxurious. It sounds like, oh, it's a spa day in there. And sometimes
these are basic staples too.
And, and some of them are manis and petties because we do them on Wednesdays. Right. And so,
I don't have one right now. I'm like,
well, by the way, because we have all of these things that women are expected to do.
Right.
And we have these conversations around having it all and how one woman does it. And you listen to these panels and it's like, oh, that's how she's managing it all. But what we don't do is create infrastructure that supports all women. So yes, we do nails. We also we did a partnership with Heal and they came and did flu shots and they came and did wellness exams and breast exams for our Janes. And one of our Janes who's an amazing entrepreneur and has an unbelievable company wrote us and said, I have not been to a doctor in the last 6 years, aside from having my child, because I can't get there. And that's the response we're really getting is, I can't get to the gym, but if you offer the classes here and I can shower afterward and then roll into my conference call, that time is huge.
Well, and speaking of time, it's such a critical time to keep mom in the workforce.
Yeah.
Because if she isn't necessarily an entrepreneur, but she maybe works within a corporate environment, this is the number one time that we end up losing are women, because going back to work is often a very hostile experience. So I love that you're building a practical solution around that, in addition to kind of providing that emotional infrastructure as well.
We need to start having, and corporate America needs to start having that conversation about, women are having their babies later.
Right.
And that's a trend that I don't see changing anytime soon. We're having children at the exact same time now where we should be making the most we'll ever make in our professional lives. So those years are intersecting, and it's a very vulnerable time. So of course you see women either not returning back in full time because they're not being supported.
Right.
And they're forced to make these choices. And we're losing so much talent. So we don't define success simply as professional paid success. We define success in motherhood, success in your professional life. And that's really important to me, that the way we talk about mothering is really examined, because I think caretaking in general in our society is not valued. And we're raising the next workforce.
Yeah, I love that. And I think also, just as a female entrepreneur, when I look at my business, that is my baby right now. So it's an ethos and a spirit more than anything else that you're creating here. So you are you're a multi-hyphenate in the sense of being an activist, being a famous actress, now being an entrepreneur, kind of the list goes on and on. Were you a born leader, or did you have to learn to become one?
I feel like I'm still learning so much. So I think that I've always been engaged in my community, and I've always really valued the women in my life and the friendships. I have a movie premiere, and my girlfriends from 6th grade on, there's 5 of us, and we roll deep and strong, and they're all showing up tonight.
And you're from upstate New York originally,
I'm from Long Island.
Right? Long Island.
So a lot of them still live in the city, and so
house.
I see them all the time.
Yeah.
And so that, I know that's not quite leadership, but I have really valued working in community. And I have, whether that's in activist work or at the Jane Club, we have an unbelievable team of women who are launching this with me, who I rely on entirely. So that is one of my personal core values, and something I'm really proud of is the relationships I have with the women in my life, and asking them for help and asking them for support and saying, I really need you. I need you here tonight. I need you to help me with this thing. I need your feedback.
So that's one of the main things that we hear from our community around how hard it is to ask for help to the woman to the right or the left. How do you practice that?
I have seen in raising money for the Jane Club and building it that women in my own life have been making introductions for me, have been really incredible about saying, I'll do this, but then I also know A, B, C, D, and opening up their Rolodexes to make phone calls on my behalf. And so I do the same. And now whatever happens once you get into that meeting or get that call or whatever it is up to you.
That's on you.
That's on you.
Right.
But I feel passionately that it's my duty and responsibility as a woman to do that. And I remember talking to Brooklyn Decker's a good friend of mine, and her co-founder at Finery, Whitney Casey, said that to me too, that she felt it was her responsibility. And I think, a lot of women feel that way, and I think it's important for us to recognize it's actually our responsibility.
Right.
It's not something that's like nice. I do not like the word nice when it's ascribed to women. I don't care about likability or seeming like a nice person for doing it. It's actually my responsibility.
Yeah, and if we need, in terms of where we need to go and the speed at which we need to get there, it's mission critical for us.
Absolutely.
Right? Who was the first woman you looked up to, and why did you want to be like her?
Oh man, the first woman I looked up to was definitely my own mother, and I had an example of a woman who was working outside the home. Again, I'm very careful not to say working mother because all mothers work, but a woman who was she was a New York City public school teacher, and she was passionate about education, and I had the example of someone who was juggling and balancing and trying to make it work and who leaned on her community. There were days where I was picked up by a random person in her prayer group and I had no idea who she was. But I knew my mom had vetted her.
Yeah.
And that was a lesson I got very early, which was like, this is the village's responsibility.
Right.
It's not just mine.
Right.
And so she would drop me off at my neighbor's house at 7 a.m. and I would wait there until I had to go to the school bus. And she was constantly kind of negotiating those deals with...
It's a whole barter system, a whole dark
with
matter.
Her village, to make it happen for me and my sisters.
Yeah.
I look back now, my mom's passed away for many years, but I wish I could ask her how she did it. But what I have gleaned from it is just the engaging and the igniting of the village around her.
I love that. I love you putting it that way, because that really is what it takes to get it all done. We're going to transition here a little bit into risk-taking, which is something we're really fascinated by. What would you say is the greatest risk you've ever taken?
I think pursuing a creative career was very risky, and there was no guarantee that I could sustain myself and take care of myself with my love of performing and acting and creativity. But I learned early on, I went to NYU, and I remember having an acting teacher who said, like, the goal is not to succeed. The goal is not to do it right.
Right.
And it really stuck with me creatively, that if I was walking away from a set wondering if I had pleased the director or if they liked me or if I had done it right, then I hadn't done anything interesting. And
that great saying, your opinions are none of my business.
Yeah, right? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that there's so much joy in failure and in flopping and in trying something that you have no idea if it's going to work or not. So listen, I'm still struggling with it. I've definitely inhaled so many of the messages that all women have, which is like, we should be good girls and we should be likable and all of that stuff. I am unlearning a lot of it. But the thing that's helped me unlearn it the quickest has really been my acting training, which was really focused on fail again, fail harder. And I feel that way, that if I didn't humiliate myself a little bit, then I didn't do my job.
Right.
Because I didn't risk anything. So that spirit I've taken with me in the Jane Club too, which is we have to try. And we have to be okay with it not working out. Because otherwise, I'm sure I could make a lot of money doing something else too.
Right.
You know what I mean? But that's not the goal.
When have you broken down personally or professionally, and how did you break through? And I'd love if you could give us a specific example around this.
Absolutely.
The bigger the breakdown, the better. Or the more painful the breakdown, the better.
I mean, the most challenging, like, personal breakdown that of recent memory, there have been many, but was after I had my first child, where I remember just hearing a screaming baby and knowing I needed to take a shower and get ready for the day, and not knowing how to take, again, when we talk about the village, not knowing what I was supposed to be doing, feeling both so out of control and helpless, and also that nothing mattered more to me. And I had this thing where the stakes were so high, and yet I felt like I had no education and didn't know, I knew the least. It was a crazy feeling. And I just remember being in the shower and literally, it was like a movie. I've never done this before in my life. Like, I just took to my knees, like, just with the water. I was like, I am so overwhelmed with this experience of being a new mother, that it was a total breakdown. Thank God for supportive husbands. And then professionally, I've had many. I mean, I've had so many. The nice part of, like, training yourself as an actor is you get very used to the no. And with fundraising and asking people for things, I'm quite comfortable with getting rejected because I've already built up that part of myself that assumes that it's most answers will be no.
That's one of the things I loved in my conversation with Jessica Alba is she, you're assuming it's yes, yes, yes. And she spoke to exactly the same thing. She said you have to assume a no. You assume a no. Yes. Every single door you're walking through, it's just going to be a no. And then it's a process of getting them and migrating them to that yes.
Absolutely. I mean, with the Jane Club, we've had so many moments of, terror and panic. And similarly with having children, when we see the women come into our space who are having such an incredible experience and share it with us, and we see this transformation, and we see that they feel supported and lifted by a community, sometimes I have to walk away because I'm like, this space is magical, and it's emotionally too much to take on. Right. Where I'm like, I have to separate a little bit because they're having this unbelievable experience, and if I were to fully make decisions based on everything that they're experiencing, I don't know that they'd be the right ones.
That's so
it's been a process to also both honor their experience, learn from it, and listen to it, and also have a healthy distance.
Right. And I think that's something our entrepreneurs struggle a lot with too, because especially we as female founders, our businesses are often an extension of who we are, which means there's so much heart down here, and yet you have to protect
the company,
the business, right? And you need a certain level of objectivity around it too, and the team and what you're creating. And so how do you kind of manage that?
How do you disappoint people, and how do you make the right decisions for the health of the company?
Yeah, it's universally hard, right? So moving off of that, how and when do you kind of doubt yourself most, and how do you manage it?
Gosh, I mean, I think my doubts and fears about myself is just, I don't have the business background. I don't have, when we're sort of hounded and potential investors are asking us questions, that's not my forte. Right. That's not, and I've been on a crazy learning curve to try to get up to speed. But that's probably where most of my insecurities present themselves. Although what's fascinating to me is I always assumed I wasn't good at math. I grew up in the age of that Barbie who was like, math is hard. And I was like, I guess math is hard. I definitely took that in.
Those TI-82s, remember those calculators with the sine and the cosine?
But what I've come to find out is actually I'm quite good at it.
Nice, yeah.
I just haven't had to do it in a long time. Right. But I actually do have a brain that's kind of built for it. So, but I've been primed to believe it's not my forte.
Right.
Especially because I pursued so much creative work that it's where I'm triggered of I'm insecure about this. I make sure I study so much harder and really, get the help from the team to really understand it. But also I'm I actually can do this.
And will you be raising capital or more capital for the Jane Club? Okay, that's nice. Maybe you'll get a decimal point.
Absolutely.
Wrong by mistake. We just moved that over. So this is one of our favorite questions. When or how do you know when to leave someone or something?
Oh, man. So not to get too Los Angeles for you, but I have a lot of Scorpio in my sign, and one of the powerful things about Scorpio is the ability to just cut off and to make really clear decisions. So that's not something I struggle with at all. And sometimes people are stunned by it, whether it's about pulling the trigger on hiring somebody or firing someone. I feel very confident as a decision maker. I just always have. And in fact, my girlfriends who I'm seeing tonight, they're always so shocked that when I was single, I'd be like, I'm not dating that person, that's over. And I will not look back. It's the same way though when you're auditioning and you've done the audition and I take the sides and I throw them in the garbage.
Yeah.
the script because I'm just like, that's done.
Yeah.
So for whatever reason, that's very easy for me.
So you're the phone a friend in that
Yes.
department within your friend circle.
Yes, very
versus
much
the rest of us who are like holding on to
No, and
things
I get
that-
so frustrated when they're like, I don't know about this, I don't know about that. Because I think what I feel sometimes is you do know.
Right.
You're just struggling with how it feels. But you probably actually know. And I think it does take people longer to come to things.
When was your bravest moment, and how do you practice being brave?
Oh, wow. I think that asking for money initially for the Jane Club and going to our community of women that we knew and asking for an investment and knowing I'm going to be a responsible steward of someone's money who I care about and have a personal relationship with took a lot for me to do. I think women and our relationship to money is fascinating and can be really loaded. And it took a lot of courage for me to say, I believe in this enough that I'm willing to put this relationship on the line. I'm willing to ask for this because I believe that it will succeed. And I believe that it's needed. But that took a lot of courage for me because I don't think women really talk about money.
Right. And did you have to reposition it in your head as I'm not pitching, I'm just sharing, or was there any kind of mental trick you did?
It's interesting because I was writing my book at the same time, which is all about women running for office, and my co-author taught me a lot about fundraising because she'd used to work at Emily's List and has worked with a lot of women candidates, and women candidates have a much more difficult time raising money. Women of color candidates even more so. So one thing that she told me about was it's an invitation, and of course a lot of entrepreneurs probably already know this, but I didn't. But from her feedback for the book on what it was to ask for money and to make your ask and then get real quiet and not say another thing, which for me was a challenge because I wanted to keep on talking.
Just let it hang.
Just let it sit. Whatever you have to do. She would tell me, like, pick up a pencil, take a sip of water, whatever you have to do to feel like this ask is just going to sit there, and you don't have to fill the space.
Well, I believe we have
really helpful.
Yeah, it's really helpful. And I believe we as women have a responsibility to also invest in other women-led businesses. So let me know when you do your next round.
Absolutely.
Because I only invest in female-led companies.
That's
so,
incredible.
I want in. Knowing what you know now, was it worth it?
Was it all worth it? Life?
Well, let's focus on the Jane Club for now.
Jane Club. Oh my gosh. It's been the most difficult and rewarding thing I've ever done, next to motherhood in general. It's been, I realized the other night, I'll never go to sleep again feeling like I got everything done. I'll never feel rested because I care so much about it. Yeah. So that's definitely a responsibility and that I've had to kind of breathe into, just like, okay, how do I maintain myself through this? Because it is a very big responsibility, but it's the most rewarding thing I've ever done.
What can you see yourself building next? And I know you have a book on the horizon too, so that's an immediate next thing, which is exciting.
I think I'm so excited about the book, and I hope it inspires women to run for office. We do need to invest in women, and we need to vote for them too. And I've been saying this because I believe in it. I unapologetically want to vote for a woman candidate for president, and I believe in saying that because I think we can get really twisted around on these issues of electability and likability and all of these words, but I have no problem saying I'm going to be voting for a woman. And I think it's important that more women vote for women, yes, because they're women. And I can talk a little bit about why they also make wonderful leaders, because there's a lot of research to support that, because most women run for office to solve a problem, and most men run for office as a career step. So we really do need more women in office. But But for me, what's next? I don't know. I mean, I honestly can't think beyond the Jane Club, but what I am excited about with what we're building is all the different places it can go. Because yes, we're a physical space, but what I'm finding is that talking to women about motherhood and talking to them about it in a way that's political and not just saccharine and not marketing to mothers as though they're children themselves, you know, and speaking to the experience in a different way, in a more adult way, in a powerful way, is resonating. And I'm excited to see the ways in which that can expand beyond our physical locations.
Yeah, there's so much possibility there in helping so many navigate the space during what is not just kind of a mission critical time, but then the journey beyond that. So we're now going to move into rapid fire questions.
Great.
So this is just first thing that comes to mind. 3 words
it's all
or
gonna
less.
Be very dirty.
We're going to hit it.
I'm going to reveal myself.
You're going to make me crack up, I'm sure. Okay, what do you most value in others?
Humor.
What do you most value in yourself?
Courage.
What holds you back?
Fear.
One thing you're afraid of?
Clowns. You said
You've
off
been one
the top.
before. One
That's
thing
true.
you'd change about yourself?
I wish I wasn't so vain about my appearance.
What is your biggest vice?
Bravo.
You know all the housewives,
Yes.
I know. What keeps you sane?
My children.
Something you wish you would have kept doing?
Playing cello.
Something you wish you would have stopped sooner?
Bravo.
What keeps you going and building?
The other women around me and the incredible women who are changing the world, who are part of my life.
You are so special. Thank you,
You are so
much
special.
for doing this.
Oh my
Thank
gosh.
you. This was a blast. Thank you.